Hey guys, before this episode of Double Take, where John and I are joined by our friend Max Barnes and we talk about the NBA coming back, we thought it was very important that we address the protests and what's going on in our country with police brutality and racism. So we did a 20-minute podcast just giving some thoughts on that. We talked about Drew Brees and his comments on the Colin Kaepernick protests. So please, we posted that on Corn Things. Please go check it out before you listen to this Double Take episode. Or if you already listened to it, then here's our episode talking about the NBA coming back with Max Barnes. Welcome to another episode of Double Take. Today is a very special day. John and I are super excited. We're going to be joined later by Max Barnes. Before we introduce him, I wanted to start this pod by saying, our first Double Take episode we did back in October, and it was titled "The NBA is Back."
Sheesh.
And now we're looking a few months later, and the NBA is back once again.
Just like Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
he's back twice.
We never would have thought that in June that would have been a title, obviously, due to the suspension. That's what happened. But forgetting about that, we are super pumped to have some basketball looking forward. We are now 56 days away from July 31st, which is going to be the first NBA games. John, why don't you introduce our very special guest today?
All right. We've had a few of our buddies from BC on the show already. Our next one up, we got our man from Massachusetts, someone who we hate all of his sports the teams that he belongs to, the fan bases, but we love him. This is our boy, Max Barnes. What's good, Max? How are you, bro?
What's going on? Thanks for having me on the show. I am humbled to be here. Coming from a fan and listener to on the show, it's a dream come true.
Wow, you being here is a dream come true, Maxie. It's also great to see your beautiful quarantine beard. You're looking like LeBron James now.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I told myself I wouldn't shave until the NBA season came back, and I definitely failed. But Max, when was the last time you shaved, man?
I'm back in April, so maybe I'll just take over that. I'll hold to it till
all right.
it comes back
Can't
on.
shave until the season starts, July 31st.
Good stuff. All right, before we get started, we have a lot to talk about, obviously, with the NBA coming back. We're going to talk about what we think about the proposal and what's actually going to happen for the league to start up again. We're going to talk about which teams does this proposal help, which it might hurt. And, of course, we're going to talk about our NBA champion picks. However, before that, Max, just a few months ago, as we were sent home from BC, there was a big news alert on my phone that I got, and I was absolutely shocked to see it. But I can't imagine how shocked you were. Max, what was your reaction to the Tom Brady news of him leaving your beloved New England Patriots to go to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm going to give you first the breakdown of the fan reaction in me and then the objective reaction, because the fan reaction, of course, I'm shocked. I had no idea he was leaving. I didn't think he was going anywhere. But then it's funny because in Foxborough, they have a way of kind of keeping the cracks filled and not really releasing any information. But we came to find out, which was even crazier, was in 2017 when the Patriots won before the season. Bill Belichick tried to trade Tom Brady to the 49ers when they inquired about Jimmy G, and that was kind of the start of the end, because that pissed Brady off. And as you both know, I mean, Bill and Brady both have huge egos.
Oh, definitely.
So, I mean, that kind of started the who's responsible for this dynasty? Is it Bill? Is it Brady? Bill was ready to move on. And then Brady
both wanted to play without each other, yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And then you see Kraft stepping in, because, I mean, if it's up to Bill, Brady's traded right there, and Kraft steps in and says no. That kind of little tilt with Bill's power there. Bill doesn't like that. And then, I mean, as you can see, Brady's never been one of the highest paid quarterbacks, and I think it kind of caught up with him, where it's like he's not even ranking in the top 10 in quarterback salaries, where it's like he didn't feel like he was respected anymore. I mean, you want to be compensated. I mean, he's the GOAT. He's not getting
But
paid.
again, it's tough because are they going to pay a 42-year-old quarterback, a salary that you would pay, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, MVP quarterbacks? Are you going to pay that to your 42-year-old, quarterback who is most likely, I mean, he didn't this past season, win you another Super Bowl for the rest of his career? So it's definitely tough as a franchise that, he's won you 6 titles. It's almost like the Kobe rule we saw towards the end of Kobe's career. They overpaid him, or in my opinion, overpaid him for what he was going to be able to do as an injured, 35-year-old plus NBA player. Yeah. He wasn't in his prime anymore, but they paid him for winning them 5 championships previously. And because of that, they were in the lottery for like 5-6 straight seasons.
Yeah, and it's interesting, John, you brought up the Kobe thing because I think that's an issue or just something that these teams struggle with and the front office struggle with is, do we pay a guy for what he's done for us in the past or what he's going to do moving forward? Wade,
for example.
Yeah, for example, guys like Pat Riley and Bill Belichick are saying, no, we want to win every year, and we're only going to pay you for what you are worth now, which is why we saw Wade leave
and go to Chicago and then Cleveland.
Unfortunately for us, he went to Chicago that year because he, similar to Brady, kind of felt disrespected. But both of those guys were, obviously past their prime, which is why I think, Max, as tough as it is that you guys lost some. Personally, I can't say this because I'm not a Pats fan, but me looking at the Pats, I would be happy that if I was a Pats fan, that you're not paying a 43-year-old quarterback.
Right? Are you so Max? Did you want to keep Tom Brady with the team, or were you happy to tank for Trevor Lawrence or whichever next franchise quarterback?
I mean, that's the thing. Well, first of all, we're not going to tank because Bill's coming for that all-time.
Really? Who's your QB? Are you guys going to pick up Cam Newton?
I mean, I think it's going to be Stidham, but it might be Hoyer. Bill might be saying, I'm going to go from the best quarterback in the league to the worst, and I'm going to try and win with him and show you the quarterback doesn't matter.
Okay. Bills will probably take the division if that's it. Or maybe even the
Dolphins, baby. Don't count out Tua, John.
If Tua has a good rookie season, I want to just quickly on the Dolphins. I want to work Tua in. I want to give Fitzpatrick the start, tank one more season. That's okay with me. Oh, okay. But we can definitely make the playoffs. Our division's not good. But you actually think the Pats have a realistic shot at winning the division, Max? Because I do not.
I mean, I think with Belichick, they're going to be competitive. I don't know how far they would go into the playoffs, but I mean, for the standard with them, I would hold them as a brink playoff team wild card.
It's a good point, yeah. But Belichick will have them there.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Brady and Bill thing, I think I would pose you this question is, from the egos, it wouldn't have worked anymore. From this season, it's obvious if you say, who are you going to keep, Brady or Bill? I mean, I think the obvious answer is Bill because of his longevity. I mean, he's got another 10, 15 years in the tank.
That's right.
Brady has, 3 maybe? If you go back to 2007.
He has a subpar quarterback, in my opinion. So
yeah, but I mean, if you go back to 2017, then it's a debate because that's when Bill wanted to trade him, and then he did win 2 more Super Bowls. So who do you take at that point?
Yeah, it's a good
point.
That's
true. I think, and obviously, Belichick's a guy who's always looking to the future, so I'm sure he was thinking long-term the move would be Garoppolo and not Brady. But in 2017, to have been considering that, to me, that actually – I don't blame Tom for being disrespected.
Yeah, the tensions were obviously high.
Needless to say, it's going to be very exciting to see how the Tampa Bay Bucks do. They're usually pretty dysfunctional. Last year, they were were they 500, I think? They were 500, so now they have Tom Brady. It should be interesting to see how much – success he can bring to them and how Belichick will do without the Pats.
One last important question, Max.
Yep.
Tampa Bay or Tampa Brady? Which is better?
Well, what I'll say on both is, 1, I think it's clearly Tampa Bay, but 2, what I'm going to say is that although I like Brady and respect him for everything he did for New England, I mean, my allegiance is to the Patriots, not the player. So I don't think I'm rooting for Brady down there in Tampa.
They're not playing this season, are they? Are you guys playing? No. The Bucks? I didn't even look at the schedule.
No, we're not. We were supposed to originally, but it all got changed because they want those primetime matchups, Brady and Breeze and all.
Right. Maybe it'll be in the Super Bowl. We'll see what happens.
Whoa. Yep, we'll see.
All right, so now getting to the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Yesterday, there was a Woj bomb that was heard
First Woj bomb in a while.
Yes. And it said that's not what it said. It basically said that a 22 team proposal was going to be voted on. And then we got a subsequent tweet later that said 29-1 was the vote. Only one team didn't like it, so that they were going to follow through with it.
And what was the format,
The
Alex?
format here, let me outline it a little bit. So the corona testing will begin on June 22nd. That's obviously a huge deal. They need to make sure that their players are healthy before they all go. And where they're going to be traveling to is Orlando, Florida. And
Disney World.
Disney World, the ESPN Wide World of Sports, I believe it's called. There's a lot of ports there. So the teams will travel to Orlando on July 7th. They'll all be screened, obviously, to make sure they're safe. Training camp will start when they get to Orlando, I believe, and they'll have almost a month before the regular season resumes on July 31st. One other thing that I read, I don't know details on this, but I did hear, I think I read this on Twitter, that there was going to be some exhibition games during this time, almost like a preseason, but it's obviously not preseason. But anyway, and then there will be 8 games, which is going to be for the playoff push and for the seeding, obviously, which those games are going to be awesome. Obviously,
Right.
we've seen –
like, for example, the Heat are the 4 seed right behind the Celtics, Max's team and our team, obviously, and we want to see the Heat come back. And I know we're going to take the Celtics out and pick up that 3 seed.
But yes, those games are going to be very good, not only because we are all very, very thirsty for some sports on TV, but because those games are going to be competitive as the teams are trying to finalize their seeding. Then the NBA Finals Game 7 would be October.
The latest day that the season would go in the playoffs would be October 12th.
And the draft lottery would be in August before the finals. And then the NBA draft would be 3 days after the finals. Free agency would start 3 days after the draft on October 18th. And then we'd have training camp on November 10th for the next season. And the season start would potentially be on December 1st. That's not completely final. But John, when I start with you, John, what do you guys think of this proposal? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it?
Yeah. So at first, I was always in the camp of, and you saw some crazy people on Twitter say, oh, just cancel the season, whatever, it's over. And for a while, there was a few weeks there, I think, in the past 3 months where it seemed like that might be a possible thing that would happen. But obviously, I was always in the camp of, listen, if there's any way they can salvage the season, even if they have to shorten playoff series or anything, obviously that wouldn't be optimal if we were having like 3-game, playoff series.
Yeah, no doubt.
But because people would put an asterisk on, whoever wins the title. Oh, the Bucks won it, but that Giannis has, by the end of Giannis's career, Giannis has 3 rings, but that first one didn't count because they won it during the, the shortened season.
You're thinking big picture, huh?
Right. So obviously I wanted the season to happen no matter what, but I'm so glad they were able to find something where they can fit in a few more games of regular season, and they can also have a playoffs where they're not shortened at all. You start to think about what's different then. Obviously, no fans. How is that going to affect certain teams, right? For example, our team, the Miami Heat, we had a great home court, and now we're not going to. But you could also look at that and say, well, now if we go up against the number 1 seed in the second round of the playoffs, like the Bucks, they won't have a Game 7 on their home court. So I'm thinking things like, oh, what's the court going to look like? You think they're going to put our logo in the middle?
No.
Like they're going to switch it up like that, Or is it just going to have a Disney World logo, an NBA logo? Like it's going to be interesting. And also I'm interested to see the scheduling, because obviously every team's not going to have their own court. So maybe, during the conference finals, the Lakers and Clippers are playing on the same court at this time, they would be second since they're the West. Actually,
No, it really wouldn't matter.
So the time is all going to be Eastern time. So maybe, the Celtics and the Bucks are playing at this time, and right after the Lakers are playing on the same court for the conference finals. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. My first concern is I just want to make sure that everyone's safe, because obviously, we can see the corona numbers start to spike up. As long as it's safe, I'm totally on board with this, and I like the proposal a lot. So, Max, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, well, first of all, to just your point, they are apparently going to be shipping down the courts from all the teams to Disney so the teams can play on their home
Did
floor.
you actually see that? Wow.
Yeah.
I did not see that anywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty. Stephen A. Smith was pretty upset about it, but we'll see what happens. Anyway,
That's nuts.
My thing is I'm going to call it the corona effect is one. You like to think these athletes are like best in the world. You think they're practicing all day, but
right.
They're playing video games. Jason Tatum said he hadn't touched a ball since the last game.
Yeah, I'm glad I heard that.
Yeah, Celtics are choke now.
Exactly. I mean, you like to think LeBron and those guys at the top are going to be ready, but some of the kind of bridge guys like Damian Lillard,
sure.
you know if they're going to come back. Like, how prepared are they? And then I'll say,
I want to believe that Dame would be, and LeBron and those guys at the top definitely are, but the younger guys maybe not.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I would hope so, and I think so, but I mean, you never know. And then also, as far as the home court goes, I mean, I think it opens up the possibility for somebody to steal a championship without the home court, because home court's so important in basketball. That's good for the Heat. That's good for the Celtics, because if you're going to Milwaukee, you're not going to Milwaukee Game 7. It's going to be on a neutral site.
Totally. I like that a lot.
I think it's a legitimate idea, so much so that Michael Jordan was pushing for the 7-game series. He wanted to keep the playoffs exactly the same. He didn't want anybody to be able to steal a championship because, I mean, I think he doesn't want LeBron to steal one, if anything, because LeBron's coming for him.
Yeah, I mean, they're the favorites right now.
Smart move by the GOAT. What I'll say about that is we can look at it. Some people, like, I guess maybe potentially Jordan. I didn't actually see that, Max, but I actually want to do more research on that. But some people, and like I said, maybe Jordan was thinking that, this championship will have an asterisk because it might be easier. I think you could even make the argument that this championship might be harder. I mean, we've never seen a season happen in which they halted for 3 months in the middle, or I think it'll be up to 4 or 5 months by the time they start up.
Yeah.
For in the middle of the season, I mean, especially the Lakers were really rolling at the moment that the NBA
The
stopped.
last game was March 11th.
Yeah, March 11th. Exactly.
July 31st. So.
And the Lakers were rolling right around that time. They had beat the Bucks and the Clippers.
Right.
And now you just stop for a couple months, and hopefully, like Max mentioned, that these teams or the players individually would have been working out. We saw that one of our favorite players right now on the Heat, Jimmy Butler, sent a hoop to each
player,
of the players on his team. But guys like Bam, who lives in an apartment, he couldn't even put it together.
Right.
I guess maybe he put it together, but where is he going to put the hoop?
And that's kind of goes back to Max's point. Like, you'd expect LeBron, right? He's been making millions of dollars since, he was 18 years old, endorsements, all that. So he has a huge house where he has a court, he has a gym there where he's able to lift weights and all that stuff and stay in shape. But think about a lot of guys on the Heat, for example, because we find these young guys who are coming off D-League, they're getting 10-day contracts. We start, like, for example, our starting point guard was is Kendrick Nunn, an undrafted guy, 24-year-old.
Duncan Robinson was undrafted.
He probably has not even made $1 million yet. Maybe he has like the cheapest NBA contract there is, right? So he's on a rookie contract and he was undrafted. So you think this guy probably has like the facilities that LeBron James has to stay in shape? Like, it's definitely not. So again, it is June. Today's June 5th. We're hoping that by July 31st, right, they have just about 2 months, just under 2 months to get their bodies back. And you definitely hope that this will give them enough time to get back into the rhythm and the swing of things.
Yeah, I think, though, in general, though, my thoughts about the proposal is they chose to go with 22 teams, and I personally didn't really agree with that. Like, the last 2 teams in were Phoenix, they're about 15 or maybe 14 games under 500 at 26 and 39. That's 13. Can't do math. And then the Washington, who's 24 and 40. That's 16 and below.
But what the logic was with that. Well, it was any team that was within 6 games of a playoff spot. So you got to think there was 20 games left in the regular season on March 11th when they had to suspend the season, right? So Phoenix was they were out of the 8th seed by 6 games, right? 6 games out of the 8th spot.
8 games left. That's not enough.
Right, but they were going to have 20. So the league is trying to say, like, let's say they just said, all right, the 16 teams, the 8 in the East and the 8 in the West that were going to be in the playoffs, those are the teams that there's no chance for any other teams.
Yeah.
Then so obviously the teams like Portland, New Orleans, Sacramento, those are the first 3 teams out. But even San Antonio and Phoenix are saying there was 20 games left. We could have, won 10 of those games, or we could have and gotten back into it. So obviously those teams had an argument to make on why they had to allow the most teams. And you said you don't like that it was 22, Alex, but again, they were very strategic about how they did it. There's only 1 team that's not in the playoff picture right now in the Eastern Conference that they're allowing to come to Orlando, yet there's 5 in the Western Conference. So it is relative. They only allow the teams that have a shot to make it.
I guess my thing is just, Max made this point earlier, is like some of these players had no clue. Like, do you really think like Phoenix, their whole team was like thinking they were going to come back? Probably not, right?
Well, there were some proposals that it would be even more than 22, I think. I saw one that was like 24 maybe, or Max, what exactly – I know you're more of a hockey fan, but I saw that the NHL is like a 24-team playoff.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? I think that at this point, with all the revenue that they lost, what they're trying to do is, one, get as much star power back in the game as possible to draw in viewers. Because, I mean, you have Zion, you have Dame, and I guess with the more teams for the expansion is the bigger probability that there's going to be that little play-in that I think is gonna draw a lot of people in. It's even more so in hockey, but I mean, I'm pretty excited about it because it's going to lead to a lot of intense games, one and dones, and I think that's going to draw in the fans. And it's a little experiment, I guess, for the future too, to see how that goes.
Yeah, and definitely even looking at our teams, right? Max, you're a Celtics fan, we're Heat fans. We're gonna play each other 2 more times, and that's
that's not for sure, but that's probably.
Well, so and then in the remainder of the 20 games of the season, right? We were gonna play each other 2 more times, so we're assuming that they're gonna make those 2 games happen out of both of our teams' 8. So those are going to be, even if we play them once, that's going to be a huge game because the Heat, right now, our record is 41-24. Celtics record is 43-21. So we're just behind you guys. So if we play them, the Celtics once or twice, the Heat, those are going to be just as important as play-in games, right? Those are going to be our play-in games basically to like get the 3 seed right now. And potentially play the 6 seed instead of the 5 seed in the playoffs.
And that is one thing I was overlooking, Max. That was a good point. I forgot about that. Is that they want to get 8 more games for as many teams as they could because of the TV money. Because I believe 8 games will push all the teams over the 70-game threshold. Which I think there might be something in the TV deal contract about 70 games being like that's like the magic number or something.
They can make a certain amount of money, obviously.
Yeah,
so they've already lost equation, a business model where they need to reach a certain amount of money, and if they get X amount of games with the TV deals and however that, and also on top of it, we just saw Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were playing golf, and that was like the most watched golf event of all time. So think about these games that are going to be very important if we get to the play-in playoff games. Obviously, this might be the most watched NBA playoffs ever. Potentially, because obviously right now there's no sports going on. People are still quarantining themselves at home. They want something to watch, and this will obviously feed that desire. So we'll see what happens. So next up, Max, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but which teams does this directly benefit, in your opinion, this new format that obviously there's going to be no fans in the arena, so they're all going to be playing at a neutral site. The Orlando Magic are in the playoffs, so maybe they're comfortable with that area.
I didn't think about that.
So they're the only ones with technical home court advantage, but obviously no fans will be there, so it doesn't really matter. But Max, what do you think about this? Which teams get benefit from this?
I mean, I think the biggest teams are kind of like the middle of the packs, like the Heat, the Sixers, the Celtics, like those types of teams, the Clippers.
Right.
I mean, you're potentially going in, especially for the Clippers, to 7 away games in a potential series, and now you have just a neutral site game, and it's going to be interesting to see also how the officiating is affected because the fans aren't really going to have a say in it, and we'll see who the NBA wants like in the finals, and if they try and engineer that reffing, and you kind of see that. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, who does the NBA want in? I mean, I think probably the Lakers, but the neutral site and everything, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There'll be no fans to call out the refs.
Right.
That's funny. It's going to be
there's no refs, you suck. No one's yelling that. So one more interesting tweet I saw, it was a joke, but maybe we could talk about how legit this is when the UFC did their first night back, they were like the first sporting event to happen. I think it was like 2 months ago, maybe.
How long was it?
I can't remember, but one of the things that they talked about was how it was an empty arena, no fans, and they could kind of hear the commentators. So like Joe Rogan's on the side, talking, and like they said they could hear them saying stuff. So it's interesting. So Bill Simmons had tweeted this and said, which team benefits directly from this? Like which badly coached team benefits directly from hearing like Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson speak louder than like they can hear them speak because obviously there's no fans to drown out their voices. So if you're the Sixers, who would you rather have as your coach, Brett Brown or Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy? So I think that's just another funny thing to think about.
I think to answer your question, I think that the teams that are hurt, or excuse me, that are helped, are those bubble teams like the Pelicans with Zion and JJ Redick. We saw at the beginning of the year, JJ Redick said to Zion, I've never missed the playoffs in my whole career.
Don't mess
this up.
Right.
So now it's funny. JJ will still have a chance to keep that streak going. And I know the league obviously would like to have that first round matchup, LA Lakers and LeBron versus Zion and the Pelicans would be totally fun.
Right.
As well as the Damian Lillard comments that he made a few weeks ago, was like, he said, I don't want to come back if I'm playing games that don't matter. So, that kind of also was interesting that they were the one team, the Portland Trailblazers, that didn't vote for this format because they preferred a 20 team.
Right. They wanted to be less.
Which I guess is less competition for the Blazers. But
right. Like, I guess they wouldn't have wanted like the Suns and the Spurs in. But I don't think we mentioned this before, but to touch on this really quickly, for the play-in format to happen, it needs to be – the teams need to be within 4 games, right? So, like, let's say Memphis takes the 8 seed and they have it. But right now, Portland is 3.5 games behind them. So that would mean there's going to be a play-in.
Yeah.
So that, in my opinion, if we see that, that's going to benefit the Blazers. I would rather take the Blazers, who are, a little bit more of an experienced team. Obviously, Dame has hit 2 of the most clutch shots, in NBA history to close out playoff series. So him, a Damian Lillard-led team against, a very young Memphis Grizzlies team that's led by a rookie, John Morant. One more thing I think is interesting to think about is, like, is Kyrie going to come back, right? So maybe some of these teams that were injured going into, March and April.
Well, Simmons and Embiid, they were both hurt.
Right. Now they just had 3 months. So 3 months later, maybe these teams, I haven't heard anything about Kevin Durant coming back, but that was obviously an early storyline. Oh, if the season starts July 31st, is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, are they going to be healthy to play for the Nets? So we can see that some injured teams, it definitely benefits those as well.
Sure. All right. And then, obviously the alternate question is, which teams is hurt? Max, do you think there are any clear teams that this format kind of hurts them?
I mean, I would just say maybe just the Lakers and the Bucks. I mean, probably I think those are the teams where, I guess like the Celtics and the Heat have good home records, but those are the 2 teams where it's going to be Game 7 at their home arena. We know the Lakers have such a strong home court presence. Same thing with Milwaukee too. It's hard to go to Milwaukee, but also it takes travel out of it too. So you have to factor that in as well. But I don't think it's hurting too many teams except the 2 top ones.
Yeah,
that's true. Milwaukee, they were going to have home court throughout the whole playoffs. So
it's definitely something unfair. And obviously this is the best of all possible situations that could have happened, but it is unfair that these teams, they really grinded hard during the regular season. And obviously they did this to clinch the number 1 seed, clinch home court. And now looking at the way it is now, they're not going to be able to get that. So we'll see. Like, maybe there's like a team like Houston, for example, is the 6th seed. We know they're probably just as talented, with 2 MVPs in their team. They're just as talented as any team in the league with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. They just kind of did start hitting their stride, after trading Clint Capella and going with this, what do we call it, micro ball or whatever it was, the super small ball lineup that they were running, with essentially having like Westbrook at their center. So maybe it gives a team like that a chance to, maybe they play the Lakers in the second round and home court doesn't matter now, and they're fully rested, and who knows, now it's more of like an anything can happen. So it's definitely going to be interesting to look at this season and then look at it side by side with other playoff series of the past and see, would this have happened if it was in the standard conventional playoffs? And it'll be very interesting to follow that throughout. All right, so obviously we just talked about how the Lakers and Bucks, are kind of at a bit of a disadvantage not having that home court. So does that change your guys' opinion at all? Have we changed our NBA champion picks like that we would have had otherwise if it was a regular format? Max, I'm going to hit you first. What do you think? Have you changed your champion pick because of this new format at all, or what?
Yeah, so I originally chose the Lakers coming out of the West, but I do think Kawhi is the best player in the league. So I think with home court taken out of it and those 7 home games for the Lakers, I think Kawhi is coming out of the West now. And then as far as the East goes, it's interesting because you want to say the favorite's the Bucks, but say Kyrie comes back, gets the Nets through to the Eastern Conference Finals. Who knows if Durant's coming back or what's going to go on with that. Yeah. And you also have the Celtics, Sixers, and Heat. With no home court, I don't know if the Bucks are going to be able to win a potential Game 7 on a neutral site. Yeah. I think it opens up a lot, but if I had to go the gut, as a fan, I want to say Celtics, but you got to go with the Bucks from an objective standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, the Bucks are super dominant this season, but you did bring up a lot of good points, Max, especially about the Eastern Conference. And, Toronto, Boston, Miami, Indiana, 76ers, those teams, and even now the Nets, if Kyrie comes back, you could see those teams, maybe not one team that's going to be able to just top Milwaukee off and beat them, but it's going to be that maybe Milwaukee will have to have an extra game or two each series that could potentially hurt them. And then in the conference finals, a team like Boston or Miami maybe knocks them off. So my initial pick with preseason was the Clippers, and then with the Lakers dominating the regular season, I actually thought the Lakers would have won normally. But now I still think that the removal of home court for the Lakers, while it would have been a huge advantage in the conference finals, having 7 games in LA, which is Laker town, I think I'm not going to pick against LeBron like I did at the beginning of the season. I'm just going to trust him and trust his motivation there's so many more reasons now. I think even in the beginning of the season, I think the stoppage is like almost an extra thing for LeBron.
It's an extra test, I think. Extra test. And for other players, if they're mentally tough enough. We know LeBron's mentally tough enough, but we'll see.
And the last dance, LeBron's been hearing about Jordan,
right,
for this whole time.
That will be hilarious to see. If LeBron now he has a shot to get the MVP too, and now he shot to get a championship. You think he's more motivated or less motivated after watching the Last Dance doc? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, I definitely think it's not less motivated. So if anything, it just helps him for sure. But Max, I think you kind of hit on the head when we touched upon this earlier with the teams that this hurts. Definitely, the team that benefits most has got to be the Clippers, because they were going to go in at literally 7 home games for the Lakers, where even their home games, on the where the Clipper logo would be on the court, it didn't matter because over half of the fans probably there would still be Laker fans, because like Alex said, LA's a Laker town. So that's a huge advantage going from a 7-game series of all pretty much home games for the Lakers, where now they can have 7 neutral games. So it definitely is worrisome, for the Lakers. I still want to say that, like Alex just touched on with the Last Dance and with, Kobe's death, I think the Lakers still are most motivated. And, I think that the last time we saw LeBron James in the playoffs, he dropped 51 against the Warriors, even though he didn't have Kyrie on his team. He went up against, that team that swept them, KD, Steph, Clay, and Dre, and those guys. And it literally took JR, his huge brain fart at the end of the game, and George Hill's missed free throw for him to lose that game. So that's the last time we saw LeBron in the playoffs, and he didn't even have a great team with him. So I think with a great team, if we see playoff LeBron, then I'm still going to keep my pick, and I'm going to go with the Lakers there. So that's what I think coming out of the West, and I think they'll probably win it against anyone in the East. And then for the East, I definitely think you're right, Max. We talked about earlier, some teams like the Heat and the Celtics also have a better shot. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes everything.
For sure. So there's definitely a lot of changes. Things are getting changed up because of the new format. And the MVP race was one of the biggest conversations we were having before the league stopped. I think our last episode, John, before the league stopped, we talked about Giannis or LeBron.
LeBron catching up.
Him. Yeah. So with 8 games left, Max, I'll ask you, do you think that LeBron has a chance to, what could he do to catch Giannis in the MVP race if there's anything that he can do?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I personally don't know if he's going to be able to catch him, just because, Giannis he's the heart of his team. Yeah, he has some good surrounding cast, but, LeBron has Anthony Davis. So it's when you look at it from that perspective, it's Giannis is really carrying the Bucks, and it's just – I don't even know. When you watch Giannis's game, he's just kind of a prolific, athletic, dunks, all that stuff. From a visual perspective, his game it's fun to watch. Not to say LeBron isn't, but he has Anthony Davis too. But you also have the LeBron factor where it's everybody knows he's one of the best players in the league. Is he going to get it? I think it's still Giannis though.
Yeah, Giannis is the easy pick because I think he was the favorite throughout the whole season. LeBron was making that push there towards the end, but it will be very hard. LeBron's going to have to average 40 in these 8 games for them to pick him. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually have an interesting opinion on this, because I think when we closed off the season in March, when it was suspended, I think everyone kind of said, we penciled in Giannis. We said, the season's over. It's going to be Giannis, right? But I think recency bias is going to play a huge role in this. and that I think it's actually even right now because of what just happened. Right now it's Giannis's, but I think whoever is the MVP in these 8 games, it's going to have a huge factor on the voters because you want to hope that the voters are going to look at the entirety of the 71 game season that these teams have all played. But the truth is, after going on 3 months, some of this stuff slips our mind. We haven't been thinking about basketball in a while other than logistics and how they can possibly play during a global pandemic, right? So I think even me, I kind of started to forget some of the standings. I remember the Heat were a 4 seed, but I was like, oh, who's seeded where, and like what teams have this record and then can make it in, right?
Yeah.
And that stuff slips your mind. So yeah, Giannis was the MVP, and I actually did pencil him in. And I thought, oh, it's over. He's going to win the 2019 and 2020. It's over. But I do think if you see the Lakers come out, and obviously we have to look at their schedule and the 8 games, if they're 8-0 and LeBron's averaging 28 and 10 assists and looks as good as he looked the rest of the season, and maybe Giannis and the Bucks know that they pretty much clinched everything. Maybe a team they go up against Washington, a team that's going to be playing their butts off because they're trying to get into the playoffs. And maybe the Bucks just come in and are a little more everyone's going to be rusty, but they're not as hungry. So maybe we don't see peak Giannis. Maybe they go, 5-3 or I don't know, whatever their record is, 4-4 in those games, and it won't matter because they still have the number 1 seed. Maybe we see that happen. And because of those 8 games, because LeBron looked electric, I think there's possible. So what I think is that whoever's going to be the MVP in these 8 games, if they look good enough, I think the recency bias will play a role and give LeBron, for example, obviously he's behind the opportunity to win it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
I just want to interject. Let me ask you this. What if, say, somehow Kawhi goes off and the Clippers overtake the Lakers for the number 1 seed? How does that fit into it?
Possible, yeah. They're within 5.5 games. There's 8 games left. So, I mean, the problem with that, maybe it's possible because the Lakers would have to go like 3-5, and then the Clippers would have to go like 7-1 or go 8-0 or whatever. I don't think that's possible, and I just think Kawhi's so far back from missing a bunch of games, and that at this point it's really just between those 2 guys, Giannis or LeBron. So that's what I think.
Well, that's the thing is I think that both of those teams, both the Bucks and the Lakers, have basically clinched by now. They're like 6 games. They're each like about 6 games above the next seed for the number 1 seed. So I think it's unlikely that we see them, doing any load management now that they've been, off for like 3 or 4 months. But what if like they had 3 more games? Like, all right, LeBron, let's keep you fresh for the playoffs. There's no point of even risking anything. Or Giannis, that's something that both of those teams could do. But I'd be surprised if we saw that. So I think that about wraps it up, Max. Thank you for coming, man. This is a great episode. We're happy to finally get you on the pod. Appreciate you being on with us, man.
100%. Thanks for having me on the show. This is a great time.
Yeah, NBA's back. Love it, bro. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. This is Double Take. John and Max are here. Go Heat. We're happy the NBA is back. See ya.
Go Celtics.